Hi everybody, it's Danny with funukuleleprojects. I'm going to try to make this introduction as fast as possible, and I want to say right from the beginning that if you stay to the end of this video, I'll have a section on tuning, a very common rule in tuning, and when it applies and when it doesn't apply, and the hows and whys about that. Anyway, as I mentioned, this video is about tuning, and it's about tuners. And the reason I'm doing this video is it's come to my attention from friends that are experienced musicians that talk about, little things. Like I ask people when they're asking about tuners, and I'm talking about accuracy of tuners and how strobe tuners are accurate to within 1/10 of a cent, and how the unitune and polytune tuners are accurate to 2/100ths of a cent, and regular tuners are accurate to plus or minus a cent. I've had friends that literally say, what's a cent? I've seen people online, on videos, inaccurately saying, "Oh, strobe tuners are 100 times more accurate than a regular tuner," and no, they don't understand how the scale works. It's not a logarithmic or an exponential scale when you're talking about tuning. In Western music, if you look at the piano scale, you've got 12 semitones in that piano scale. It's basically on your instrument, you call them half steps. So the notes, in the piano, you got C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, and it goes on up like that. Well, you have 12 of these semitones, and you have 100 little steps in between those semitones, and those are called cents. So there are 1,200 cents in a scale, 12 semitones, equal semitones in that scale. So a tuner is accurate to plus or minus 1 cent, your average chromatic tuner. I mentioned the better, and I'm specifically saying the better strobe tuners, the Peterson, the unitune, the polytune, are accurate to plus or minus 1/10 of a cent. And now, in order to really have that have any meaning whatsoever, we need to understand that human ears have a limitation that's way less than that. I mean, way less accurate than that's a good way to put it. Humans, some researchers say humans can only hear to plus or minus 10 cents, but they're talking about random reference tones that have no context to them. And other people say, no, if a musician or someone, an average person, even that's fairly experienced with music, is hearing music in context and notes in context, they're accurate more likely closer to plus or minus 5 cents. A lot of real experienced musicians, a lot of professional musicians, very possibly could have accuracy when notes are being played in context, plus or minus 2 cents. But that's still, a lot less accurate than plus or minus 1 cent of your tuners if they're actually being plus or minus 1 cent. There are a lot of variables there too. I'm not going to go into all this. I'm trying to make this an introduction to the practical part of this video. So what I did do is I created a visual representation to make it a little more tangible for people that are visual in the way they think. Now understand, we're talking about sound waves, and a low frequency sound wave looks like this, and a high frequency sound wave looks like this. And to show them whether they're off just a 100th of one another, I couldn't show that. The little squiggles wouldn't show up in a way that I could demonstrate on a video. So I created, excuse me, a straight line graph that is in scale with regard to the tuners that I'm going to be demonstrating in the demonstration section. So once again, this is a graph that shows in scale. And so this line here is the reference pitch. It doesn't matter, G, C, E, or A, that's your reference pitch. These two lines on either side of that would be the unituner that I have, or that company also makes a polytuner. The only difference is the polytuner, if you have a guitar, you strum it, it will tune all 6 strings simultaneously. But then it's only accurate to 1/2 cent. But when it's in strobe mode, it's accurate to 2/100ths of a cent. That's right there. So you have the reference pitch. The unituner will get you to within 2/100ths of a cent, either plus or sharp, from that reference pitch. The Peterson Strobe tuner will consistently get you to plus or minus 1/10 of a cent of that reference pitch. And there are two other strobe tuners that you'll see in the video, and I'm not going to put them in the same class as the Peterson Strobe or the Polytune, and you'll see why in the demonstration. Even though they say they're accurate to plus or minus 1/10 of a cent, a lot of that accuracy comes in the repeatability of being able to read the display, and that's where the other two fall short. Although one of them is just an instrument, a tuning instrument to avoid at all costs, and you'll see that in the video too. So anyway, your regular chromatic tuner is accurate to plus or minus 1 cent. So you can see that it will vary. 1 cent will vary quite a bit. That looks like they're terrible tuning instruments in comparison with the Peterson or the Unitune, but we have to remember what humans can hear. And professional musicians more than likely are plus or minus 2 cents. And the average person, being generous in terms of the average person's ability, doesn't accurately completely fit on this, because this is only plus or minus 3 cents. So we have to change the scale. The average person would be, this is the reference note, and it either goes that far to that side or 5 cents that way, is what the average person can hear. So all that is to say that any of the instruments you're going to see in the demonstration section are plenty accurate for tuning for the most part at the open strings G, C, E, and A. I will mention real quickly that in the videos, in the demonstration part of this video, I'm going to keep saying things like, well, this tuner's not that good for intonation. When I'm talking about intonation, I'm not talking about tuning the instrument. I'm talking about checking the intonation at the 12th fret. And you're going to see in that demonstration that none of the chromatic tuners that I have are consistent at checking intonation at the 12th fret. And that's why I won't use them for that. People pay me to work on the intonation of their instruments, especially like vintage instruments and whatnot. I want to be sure the tuning instruments I have, the tuning devices I have, are as accurate as possible. And I'll explain what I use and why in the demonstration part of the video. Now once again, stick with the video to the end, and I'll explain that rule, what it is, when it applies, when it doesn't apply, and why. Okay, this is the demonstration part of this video, and for expedience sake, I'm not going to be tuning with each of these. I've already actually tuned with the most accurate tuner, and that would be the Unitune tuner. That's actually 200th of a cent. And so what I'm going to show is what the displays look like, what your options are out there. You might have seen pictures of them, but you might not have seen them working. And some of these are representative of lots of different models. This is the one I give away with my instruments, and this particular tune is going to be given with the College Concert Waterman. And once again, the instrument's already in tune. So if these tuners are saying otherwise, there's something wrong with the tuner. C is in tune. Try A. I'm not going to try all the strings. It'll take a long time. I've got 8 tuners here. And then I want to remind everyone, and you can see the Islander here. This is my Islander. It's my customized Islander. If you haven't seen the video, go back and watch that video, because this has been heavily customized. Not just the mother of pearl inlay at the top and the rosewood faceplate. The body has been, essentially re-thicknessed at the top, so it's more resonant. And the neck has been reprofiled to allow vibrations to travel up and down the instrument more effectively. So I'm going to check intonation at the 12th fret with these tuners and these tuners, because I mentioned already before that a lot of the regular tuners are not accurate once you get up the fretboard. And this one here, I already know it's spot on at the 12th, but this tuner is not recognizing that. It's picking it up, which is better than a lot of tuners, but it thinks it's sharp. Therein lies the problem with using these cheaper tuners, if I was relying on this tuner, it would tell me it's 10 cents off, but I already checked it and I know it's right on the money. But I give it kudos for picking up the sound at all. A lot of instruments, for whatever reason, the E, it's really having trouble picking up. And it's saying it's sharp, but I know it's not sharp. Here's the Ukulele. This one here, I don't know what the single price is. I purchased these like 4 at a time for like 16 bucks. These are $9. They've got a nice little display. You'll notice I wasn't having trouble turning it on. With this type of tuner, one button controls everything, and you can set them for, they have a few basic settings, like, you know, right now it's set for chromatic. You can set it for bass, ukulele, violin, stuff like that. And if you hold the button too long, it'll automatically go over to guitar. And so that's why I'm careful. If it's never not tuning right, check and be sure the letter is either on C or ukulele. U for ukulele. I just leave it on C. It's reading C. It's picking up A. And once again, it's saying A is slightly sharp. As I said, I know A is not sharp. However, the Kalena is sensitive enough to be able to pick up. I hit with my fingernail. There, it's picking it up. You know, sometimes it's reading it on and sometimes it's reading it sharp. So at least sometimes it's getting it right at the 12th, which is a lot better than the aroma. The aroma's not bad. It keeps everything accurate here. That's what these are designed to do, is just get you in tune to play. And it's doing a good job of that, and it's actually picking up. Does it pick up the E? It says the E is sharp. Oh, it's saying the E's. It's saying the E's attacking sharp and that's going on. Now it's reading E as A. And this is what the regular tuners have issue with. There, it got the E. You got to forgive the regular tuners when they show a wrong note. Even some of the better ones that initially. Just click it again until you get the right note. Here's the snark. I forgot what I paid for this. It's like, you know, $13 or $18 or $15. I don't remember. This is their the model name ends with an 8. It's got a decent display. C is in tune. It says A's flat. It says it's in tune and quickly drops flat. Doesn't even read it. There it comes up, says flat. Doesn't, picks up E and says it's sharp. Now it's on. So this one gets to E. C. It says G sharp. As I said, I already checked the tuning on this. But it doesn't even pick up the A. I just said A is C. This is why you can't rely on these at the 12th. And I mention that because I see videos of people using cheap tuners and then they're making determinations of how good an instrument is doing. This is the click tuner. They call it the Uberturner. This does have a really nice display. $25. I got this for my wife because she wanted something she could see in sunlight without any trouble. And boy, oh boy, you can see that display. That's an amazing display. Picks up the A and says in tune. And I know the A is in tune. but it's having trouble with E too. See? C's in tune. Says G's a little sharp. Let's try the E real hard. Saying A, it's E. It's accurately saying it's in tune, it's inaccurately giving the note. Wow, it just doesn't want to pick up the E. There it is. Might be the way it's sitting on the instrument. And you can see that it's more accurate than the other lesser expensive, just regular chromatic tuners, but it has issues. But for up here, it's great, and the display is really easy to read. $25 tuner. This is a $25 strobe. It has claim to the fame. This is the Crescendo Zen strobe. It's claimed to fame as being the cheapest strobe tuner that's accurate to 1/10 of a cent. Here we go. I don't disagree. I'm not going to dispute their claim that they're accurate up here to 1/10 of a cent when checking things. When it's in tune, that little arc, the little semicircle of LEDs will stop moving for a second or a split second, and then it'll leave either sharp or flat depending how it decays. So that's basically saying C's in tune. E, according to their own literature, if it stops or is moving slow, it's in tune. So here's my big complaint with this tuner. I can get it to stop. So I'm probably somewhere between 1/10 of a cent and a cent right now. I'll just leave it there for now. A. A is supposed to be in tune. Watch what happens when I hit A down here. Now it's saying A is really sharp. But two of those other tuners, the Kalena and the Quick Uberturner, said A is in tune. So it's picking it up, but it's not giving an accurate reading. Zen Strobe, the Crescendo Zen Strobe tuner is accurate up here, but it does not work reliably for checking intonation. Now comes the worst of all these tuners, and it's the second most expensive. This is the Korg Sledgehammer. It's claimed to fame as a 9 volt, not 9 volt, a AAA 1.5 volt battery goes in here. Lasts 100 hours between batteries, 100 hours of use. Problem is, it doesn't tune. C, it says the C is flat. We've already seen the C on multiple instruments is correct. A, it says A is flat and significantly flat. Up at the 12th, it says A is really sharp. And the problem with this instrument, E's closer, G is in tune, now it's saying A is in tune. Wait. No, it says it's flat. They say they're accurate to 1/10 of a cent. The problem with this thing is there's just no consistency with it. Another problem with it, is it actually picking up my talking? No, it's just hunting. Another problem with it is that the target hertz seems to be off on this. You can set instruments sharp or flat, and as you set this one from 440 to 441, then like in 440, usually the C will be in tune, and then the A won't be in tune. And at 441, the A will be in tune and the C won't be in tune. This is just a bad tuner. Maybe I have a defective one, but other people that have bought these have complained about the same thing. It's consistently bad, so that if everyone has this tuner, or if this tuner is tuning all the instruments, they'll all sound the same. But if anyone in the group is using any of these other tuners and you're using a Korg, people are going to start looking at you saying, you're out of tune. So I don't recommend this one at all. Here's the Peterson Strobe tuner. This is the most expensive of the bunch, and it has the features and the accuracy and the reputation to warrant that. See, that's telling me C is really, really in tune. If anything, it's ever so slightly fading. There, now it's absolutely in tune. The Peterson, if it stops for a second, it's in tune. A is still right there. Go to the 12th. A is in tune. Wait till the G goes away. I don't even know why it's displaying G. I didn't touch anything. E's in tune. C's right on the money. It fades sharp. G is in tune and fades sharp. See, I told you, it's in tune. All of these are reading inaccurately. The Peterson also has a neat feature where it has optimized tunings for, it's like 20 or 30 instruments. And even have one for ukulele, but the one for ukulele only is for concert-bodied ukuleles that are tuned reentrant. And since I only have one like that, and I've got a bunch of different instruments, I just leave it on chromatic. This is a $70 tuner, and because it's a $70 tuner, it's my primary, well, not because of the price. Being accurate to 1/10 of a cent is easier to get a vintage instrument than 2/100 of a cent. So this is my primary tuner for checking intonation when I'm restoring a vintage instrument. Also, it's a decent size. I mean, not in a good way. It's pretty bulky. So you combine its price with its size and how indispensable it is for me for checking intonation on instruments I'm working on. This just stays in a basket and comes out when I'm checking intonation. Now this is the most accurate of the bunch. And this has a sister or brother tuner, however you want to say it. This is the Unitune tuner from TC Electronics. They also have a Polytune. The difference is that the Polytune, if you set it to Polytune function rather than Strobe, instead of being accurate to 2/100 of a cent, it'll be accurate to 1/2 a cent. And then someone that wants to do a quick tune on a guitar can strum all 6 strings and it'll show all 6 strings and where they are, and you can do a quick tune on it. I will never use that function, and so it'll be lost on me. It's a $50 tuner with brushed aluminum body. I'm perfectly fine with this $30 one that Sweetwater has on sale periodically for $20 with the plastic body. I also have black. Since I bought this, I've got 2 more in black. And normally we'll read right to left, and if you're lefty, it'll read, it'll automatically orient itself. This way, I think it's going to interpret it as this will be left and this will be right. So this will be flat and this will be sharp. Right on the money. E is right on the money because I use this to tune. A is right on the money. Now I'm going to show you another neat thing about this tuner, and that's its sensitivity. You'll notice that every time I start talking, it starts picking up. That's because it's not picking up my voice. My islander is so resonant. I know that the mic on the camera won't pick this up, but the instrument is vibrating. I can hear it vibrate. And this instrument is so sensitive that it's picking up the vibrations inside the instrument as I speak. Watch, I'll stop talking. Now I'll start talking again. It's going to start picking up the notes that I make again. But if you hear noise, you don't have to worry about being so sensitive it won't tune, because if there's a lot of background noise, that will override it. See, now nothing that I'm saying is get picked up. At the 12th, A is on and then fades sharp. E is on, then fades sharp. C is on and fades sharp. G is on and fades sharp. And look at how accurate that display is. and how sensitive. When it's in complete tune up here, you get that little cross. Now watch, if the camera will pick it up, it started to very, very faintly show red LEDs above the green. Right there. That's telling me that before it starts to decay flat, it's actually going, the string's actually going the tiniest bit sharp, taking it off of that, plus or minus 200th of a cent, just ever so slightly. You can actually have a bar or so before you're getting to like a tenth. And so that's how sensitive this is. It's repeatably accurate. It's extremely, you can accurately see the finest of details when checking. And I'll turn this off. As I said, the main reason the Peterson is my primary device for checking intonation is when I'm dealing with vintage instruments, it's easier to get them to within 1/10 of a cent, and there's no way that humans are going to hear the difference of 1/10 of a cent. They can't even hear the difference with plus or minus 1 cent for the most part. And then, so this is just, icing on the cake. But it's really nice. You get a group and they tune, everyone tunes to this, everyone's like completely on tune. And when they're on sale, they're $20. That's all. Plus, they're really compact. So they fit well in the pocket. And they're pretty rugged. I've actually dropped this one a couple times. I actually hit the ground so hard one time I had to pop it back together. But, I'm rambling on at this point. This video's going to get too long again. So once again, this is the most accurate, the Unitune tuner, Peterson. These are really consistently accurate. 1/10 of a cent, you can trust it. They say this one's accurate to 1/10 of a cent, but the display is not reliable enough to really do that. I say it's like a good regular tuner. This one has great display. Snark's okay for tuning up here. Don't use it to check intonation. Kalina actually can pick up sound, and sometimes it's right. It's better than others. The aroma works fine up here, but it has trouble farther up too. As a rule, if you want to check intonation, you need to invest in equipment that will do that. If you're going to get a clip tuner that will do it, these two will do it. There are other devices you can get that aren't clip tuners, but all of these tuners here, not this one, all of these tuners here in this area, I think the camera can pick all that up, are going to tune your instrument more accurate than your ears can hear. I'll get back to the next part of the video now. Okay, hello again everybody that made it through the demonstration and the intro. The rule I'm referring to is always tune up. How many people have heard always tune up? If you play a stringed instrument, you've probably heard people say always tune up. The interesting thing is the reasoning given for this is often rather dubious. I literally heard one instructor say one time in a lesson, always tune up. I'm not sure why, but I was told that and it works, so always tune up. Well, that's not a good reason. And I'm a conceptual processor, so I'm like, well, I want to know the why. Is there a reason for always tuning up? And does it always apply? Some people will say, some manufacturers will say, well, you always want to tune up because if you try to tune down, the strings will bind or can bind, and then it doesn't tune down reliably. That can happen sometimes. However, if an instrument is set up properly and the nut slots are filed proper for the gauge of strings that you have, and you have decent tuning machines, that's really not such an issue. I mentioned the decent tuning machines because a lot of lesser expensive ukuleles, there's play in the gear, so that when you're tuning up, there's like a free play before it engages to tune down again. And with an instrument like that, you want to tune up because it's not consistent when it's going to get, because you're using a cheaper tuning machine. But with a better tuning machine, that's not an issue. Now, some people say always tune up because the strings stay in tune longer than if you tune down. I can tell you quite emphatically that's not true. I have tuned so many different instruments over the years where I have tuned, say, the the G and the E down, and I tuned the C and the A up to see how long they last. And then I did the opposite, where the G and the A went up and the C and the E went down. And if the instrument is set up properly, if you have quality tuners, they stay in tune the same amount of time. So why do we always need to tune up? Well, first off, as you saw in the demonstration part of this video, if you're using a really good strobe tuner, if you're using the Peterson strobe tuner, if you're using the Unituner, the Polytune tuner, then you can tune down, and you can tune down very accurately and very precisely right on that note. And it's not such an issue. And that's true whether you're using friction tuners, geared tuners. I find with some vintage instruments where the friction tuners are particularly finicky, sometimes it's easier to just do that fine touch down with the vintage instruments, and they hold tune fine. And now if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to play with people, I'll definitely use one of my strobe tuners. So if that's the case, then why do I need to tune up? Well, I'm going to give you the main reason that I see for always tuning up, and it's a really important reason actually. If you're playing with a group and you want to have the greatest chance of everyone sounding in tune for the widest variety of music and the widest number of instruments that are showing up, always tune up if everyone's using standard chromatic tuners. And here's the reason for it. Remember the diagram I showed you before. The standard chromatic tuner is only accurate to plus or minus 1 cent. Now when you've got a group of people playing, or you've got a club playing, you have people showing up with instruments of all different setups, all different prices, all different qualities. Some people may find an expensive instrument. The instrument itself is not that great. I've seen some name brand instruments that really just weren't that good, that needed a lot of work. And I've seen some really inexpensive instruments that were wonderful. But in a practical sense, some people like the action really high, and some people like heavier gauge of strings because they want to really play hard. And their instrument may have a tendency to go sharp as it goes up the fretboard. That's fine because all the strings are doing it the same. If they're playing alone, it sounds fine. But let's say there's another person in this club, or let's say it's just a couple instruments, and that person has an instrument that just impeccably keeps tune. Now, let me see. You're looking at this. You're looking at me. So my right would be your left. So let's say someone's tuning up with a chromatic tuner with a really nice instrument that always holds tune, and they're tuning up till it's just in tune. Now let's say the person playing with them is tuning down, and they're using a chromatic tuner, and they have an instrument that it has a higher action, it doesn't hold tune up the fretboard quite as well, and so they're tuning down. It's within the realm of possibility, it's within the realm of the percent error of the inexpensive chromatic tuners for them to start 2 cents off. So they're starting, and your ear thinks they're in tune, but in reality they're already 2 cents off. And so as this person starts playing, the one that tuned down with the instrument that has the higher action and the stiffer strings, as they're playing a song that goes farther up the fretboard, all of a sudden there's the chance that those notes are going to get to within the range when now they're more than 5 cents off from one another. Or maybe if they're experienced musicians, they can hear it's close enough at 2 cents, but now they're 3, 4, 5, and now they're noticing it. And the person that's playing the instrument that was tuned down will look to the other person and say, "Your instrument's flat." And that person whose instrument is right on is saying, "No, yours is sharp. Can't you hear it? It's sharp." If they had both tuned up, then the chances are, as they were playing, the variation that would have come from that instrument that goes slightly sharp would have still been within the tolerances of what their ears would be hearing. And so when you're playing in a group, because of the fact that people are showing up with different size instruments, they're showing up with different quality of instruments, they're showing up with different actions on their instruments, different strings that different people are using. In order to keep everything as uniform as possible, make sure the group always tunes up. And I'll go so far as to say, make sure they always tune up and to the point of just being in tune. Because one person will tune up and they might squeak it a little farther, and then they might be getting to the sharp side. They might play it and notice that it's in tune and peaks sharp. Well, if your average chromatic tuner is peaking sharp, it's already going to be a few cents off. And so make sure that if they're tuning up and they're getting as close to just tuning up and just being in tune, from flat to in tune. And if everyone does that in a group, there's a much greater chance that everyone in the group, for the direct time that they're playing, is going to sound in tune regardless of where on the fretboard they're playing. So that's the main reason for always tuning up. If you're using a Strobe tuner, if you're using a Peterson Strobe tuner, if you're using a uni tuner or a poly tuner, then you can be the person in the group that's tuning down to fine tune to save some time for yourself. But if the group is using chromatic tuners, always tune up. It just is greater chance for everyone to sound in tune. If you're at home, it's not that critical. If you're just playing by yourself and you have an instrument where the tuners are finicking and it's easier to tune down, then don't worry about it. Tune that note down, or tune that string down. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video on tuning. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you in the next video.